This husband and wife are named Laura and Antonio. Laura is now in her 40s, while Antonio is now around 60. Laura is not Antonio's only wife. She is his second. Antonio himself loves being intimate. You could say he's obsessed with it. He constantly asks Laura to be intimate. This increasingly makes Laura bored and tired, feeling like she's just a scapegoat for Antonio. Not only that, but it turns out Antonio has also started playing around behind Laura's back with other women. To maintain their marriage, Laura even goes to a coworker and asks for advice on how to provide the best intimate experience for Antonio. Unfortunately, the arguments become more frequent, making Laura even sadder, and she begins to consider leaving Antonio. On the other hand, Antonio also can't stand living without Laura. Feeling confused about the boredom of his marriage, he seeks the advice of a friend who is a doctor. There, Antonio asked for advice on how to get closer to his wife again. From there, Antonio was invited to meet young women and, of course, to become intimate with them. One day, Antonio's son, Claudio, returned from abroad. He was picked up by Antonio and Laura. One night, the three of them attended a party with their friends. The party turned out to have a rather unique game concept. When the lights went out, everyone had to find their own partner. In the game, Antonio chose someone else while Laura was paired with Antonio's best friend. This incident deeply disappointed Laura. She couldn't understand why Antonio chose someone else over her. An argument inevitably ensued, and Claudio unwittingly overheard the commotion. The next day, Claudio tried to talk to his father and asked him to control his emotions. He also approached Laura to calm and comfort her. His efforts were successful in temporarily repairing the relationship between his father and stepmother, although the conflict eventually resurfaced. From that moment, Laura began to experience unusual feelings. Her relationship with Claudio grew closer, and she began to feel jealous when she saw him with another woman, especially that day when she saw Claudio bringing his new acquaintance to a hotel. Claudio himself was handsome and adept at winning women's hearts. Eventually, Claudio and Laura grew closer and formed an unusual relationship. Finally, the opportunity arose. Antonio wanted to go out of town for business. However, it turns out Antonio had lied, and he was still in town, secretly watching Laura and Antonio, even overhearing them making out. Meanwhile, Claudio and Laura became increasingly uncontrollable, always together and making out wherever they were. Meanwhile, despite knowing everything, Antonio remained silent, pretending nothing was happening. Until, one night, Antonio peeped through a hole in the wall behind a painting. He overheard a conversation between Laura and Claudio, in which Laura wanted to leave Antonio because she couldn't stand it anymore. Claudio tried to restrain her and begged Laura not to leave her father. Shortly after, Antonio appeared and expressed the same sentiment. He claimed he couldn't lose Laura, but Laura's decision was final. She still chose to leave. Several months after the breakup, Antonio continued to think about Laura, especially when she was intimate with Claudio, until, while Laura was skiing, someone pointed a gun at her from a distance. Moments later, Laura died. It's unknown who that person was, but it could have been Antonio. And finally, the film ends.